Welcome to the Financing Simplified Podcast with Anthony Venuto. If you're looking for answers to your financial questions, let Anthony and his network of friends and associates answer regular questions that regular people have about their money. Thanks for tuning in. It's time to start simplifying your finances.
Welcome back to the Financing Simplified Podcast, where today we have special guest Tony Fabiano from Fabiano Realty. We're going to be talking about some of the stats that he brought to the table here, just to give us a little bit of an overview on the market right now, especially in the GTA. Talking a little bit more about some rent, talk about what's happening in Vaughan, and more importantly, we'll get into a conversation around the potential for the Bank of Canada, what we see happening as we push forward. But Tony, I just want to take this opportunity to really thank you for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, when you started, your areas of where you work, so that our viewers can get to know you.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Basically, I've been licensed since 2008. At that time, full-time since then. I was with one of the big brands for 12 years, and then I decided to do a sub-franchise. So what that means is I use their brand, and that was my own brokerage. Beginning of the pandemic, I decided, hey, you know what? I got a lot of time to think here. What are we doing? And that's when I decided to go fully independent. So we've got a boutique brokerage here in Woodbridge. We're on Highway 27 in Langstaff, so very close to your location here. Our focus really is, servicing the clients, giving more of a one-to-one experience rather than a big brokerage, and all about numbers.
I love it. We're a boutique brokerage as well. We're a family business run and operated directly with my brother, my mother, and myself. So a few agents underneath us. Mm-hmm. And we love to bring that, that comfort, that specific attention to our clients, where I think a lot of times when you're working with some individuals, you're getting pawned off here and there, and you're not able to get that, we call it custom service that you get. So love to hear that. And ultimately, you said you got in around 2008. That's obviously around the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. Mm-hmm. How have you seen your business sort of change and evolve for you? What's working for you? What's not working for you?
Well, basically in 2008, it was I didn't know any different because I was just starting anyway, but I was coming from a totally different business. So a lot of realtors get into the business thinking, oh, great, I'll do a few sales. They see their realtor show up in a nice fancy car and they think it's so easy. I realized really quick, it's a lot of work. You have to build relationships. You have to foster those relationships. It's not just, making the sale and then disappearing. So we build our relationships long term. So what we did was we started from our sphere of influence and worked our way out from there. We're not big advertisers, with big billboards or anything like that, repeat and referral. So it started off, and, I would say when we look at the big metrics with the brokerages, it's all about awards. Mm-hmm. So when my first year, I didn't win one. I was, I did a few sales, and really great was my first month. I actually sold something. I was like, oh, this is a great business. But then it took another 2 or 3 to get another one under my belt. But then things started to slowly progress, and year after year, from that year forward, I was always an award winner as in the brand. I was in the top 2% of the Toronto Real Estate Board pretty much for the last 5 years. And at that brokerage, I was either number 1 or number 2 in that brokerage, and that's when we went out. So the ups and downs came, and just like everyone else and in any business. But it's been progressively getting busier every year.
That's good. Your client acquisition, obviously your portfolio grows as your network continues to expand. I love what you said about the awards. I always say, we get these nice shiny awards. It's like, well, that's for last year, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we did last year. Let's focus on how we're going to build this year, right? What are we going to do differently? And I can say, because our industries are pretty much correlated, how are we building that out, right? It's talking to clients. And I think, your experience, right? So you have a lot of that under your belt, and most of your times your clients are going to lean on us or lean on you to guide them on this process. We say to our clients, it's like, I've made the mistakes. Don't make the mistakes that we've made. That's why we're here to help you, right?
Sure.
And I find it, we're talking about a little bit off camera, the ethics, the belief that we have in real estate. I think as you're an investor yourself, just like we are, we bring that to the table. And we were talking a little bit about what we see happening right now with with rents as a landlord, right? What do you see happening right now? What's the common denominator in the rental market right now that you're feeling?
Well, from my experience dealing with both my own rentals and helping manage some of my clients' portfolios, I'm seeing that the rents, they're great. They're high. So everybody's pushing for the higher numbers because obviously they have to cover the costs, especially if their mortgage rate is at the upper end, if they hadn't renewed in the last 5 years.
Or have a variable.
Right, have a variable, exactly, right? So the landlords are pushing for those higher rents and we're getting tons of applications, but the problem is they're not qualified. So we're stretching these people's budget to the point where now they either have to bring in roommates, multiple people, so husband, wife, mother, daughter, and then we're in a small unit. And is that really what the landlord wants? There's more wear and tear, potential for noise issues between units. So I'm finding, yes, the rents are up, but the qualification, the pool of renters is shrinking, at least in the last, I would say the last 4 to 6 months.
It's interesting you brought up the qualification for rent, right? Like, I mean, when we look at a mortgage, obviously there's ratios, there's specific guidelines. What are you looking at, like when you're positioning your owner of the property, yourself? How are you looking at that? Let's say I'm a landlord, I'm leaning on you, Tony. How do you qualify a tenant?
So first, we start with a lot of paperwork. So a lot of tenants don't like me because I make them jump through hoops. I need every single bit of paperwork before I even present it to the landlord. So I start with, job letters, 3 recent pay stubs, credit reports, full credit reports on any adult that's going to be living in the house. Not just, they say, oh, my husband has great credit and I have bad credit. Then we don't take you. There's no in between. So I line everything up first. Then I do my online deep dive on them to see what I can find. If they're a ghost, then I don't want them either. I need to know that these people are real and that they do make the money that they make on paper. Then I make my phone calls. I want to make sure that they're paying their bills. So it's not always about how much money they make, it's what they're paying. So a lot of times I look at it and say, what do they pay first? Usually they'll pay their rent because they don't want to get in trouble with their landlord, let's just say. So I look at that and then I tally it up. And then I can't expect people to live a certain lifestyle. So I have to look at it and say, okay, they make X amount of money. What's left over? So kind of like you with your TDS, right? When you guys are looking at qualifying, I want to know that at the end of the month, they have money to eat. Like, can they buy, food? Can they pay their car lease or whatever they have? So that's the way I look at it.
So I love the process that you've taken on, Tony. It's really, really good to make sure that the clients, your landlords, your owners of the property feel that comfort. Like we were talking about, it's feeling comfortable with all the due diligence that you've done up front before you get that tenant. Because as we know, anything can happen. And then at that point, we have to go through the Ontario tribunal, which can take, I think now they're saying 12 months now? Something
I'm hearing clients, people that have other rentals, 12 to 15 months just to get a
court date.
And if there's one error on it, you go back to the beginning. So
and I think this as we enter an economy or a market that I think we're seeing the writing on the wall, less homeownership is going to transpire as we bring in more people. Eventually, we're not building enough homes. We were talking around 1.2 million Canadians arrived, or 1.2 million individuals arrived last year. Of that, that the best case scenario, Canada's building around 300,000, if that. New dwellings, new units, whatever the case is. So the numbers just don't play out. And, we look at the opportunities right now. Are we seeing more rental properties come to market, or is it something that we're seeing actually dwindle away?
Well, I think it's more challenging because of the price of property. So, a novice landlord could buy a single detached house in Toronto, call it $1.2 million. They would have to then either divide it into 3 apartments, likely to actually break even, and that would be cutting it very close. So I'm not seeing as much. I'm seeing a lot of people do value add, things like laneway houses or garden houses, but that's still at the beginning stages, and it's very expensive to build. The big landlords like the REITs and the corps, they're not building. They more because there's less incentives. Obviously, the government's trying to do things that are helping but I don't think it's enough. Land's too expensive. And so to answer your question, no. And I'm seeing it. A perfect example is I have a rental right now that I've been helping a landlord with. And it's in Toronto, and it's a 1+ den, but it's 2 levels in a house. It's a little bit, how can I say, not a typical layout. And I get, most of the inquiries are on Facebook Marketplace. If I get no less than 20 a day, it's too little, too few. And I'll ask specific questions. And most of these people are newer immigrants because they'll ask me, what type of paperwork are you asking for? Or what do you require? And so I have my replies to that. And out of those 20, I might weed out one person that is qualified to see it. And it's unfortunate because these people are new to the country and there's not enough space for them. They want to put in 5 people in a 1+1. I can't do it. Like the landlord can't do it. I mean,
Safety, that's a fire hazard.
Fire hazard. It's just, noise because there is people above. You can't put 5 people and you have 2 upstairs. So it's a challenging.
I saw what happened in Brampton, right?
It's scary.
It
It's scary.
is. So let's take an opportunity to shift some gears. Obviously, with the rental stuff, there's tech and stuff like that's coming down the pipeline that hopefully can help streamline a lot of this process for landlords. We'll be talking more about that on future episodes. But, you're based in Vaughan, GTA, Woodbridge. Tell us what you're seeing right now. As we're rounding out, beginning of April, all these numbers are going to start to roll. What are you seeing play out right now with inventory, months of inventory? Why are we seeing multiple offers? Why is this happening? Is it because people are just crazy, or is there an underlying deeper causality here?
Okay. So there's 2 things that I see. Okay. So, people were on pause basically from September of last year. And a lot of people before that, but more notably, I noticed it from, September to December. Anybody that I talked to was like, I'm waiting. I want to see what the government's going to do with the interest rates, see if the prices come down. And they did. They started to come down in certain markets and certain areas. Prices were starting to come down between those months that I mentioned, and they were selling, relatively quickly. But at that time, I would say we were in the 4 months of inventory at that time, which in practical terms, that would be a balanced market. So when you're less than 2 months, you're in a seller's market, and when you're above 6 months, you're in a buyer's market. So it was kind of teetering in certain areas. Then January hit, and still, I was finding the calls were coming in slowly. But then, February, my phone was ringing off the hook. I'm thinking about buying. I'm thinking about selling. Tony's a good time, and so what was happening is the people that I believe that were on the sidelines have started to realize that maybe the Bank of Canada isn't going to raise the interest rates, and it potentially could reduce them in the next coming months. So let's get in the market now. But here's the problem: there's limited inventory. So if it's a good property, presented well, in a good neighborhood, people were jumping on it. And I'm finding that I'm getting into multiple offers. A perfect example is a property that I had listed just here on Islington, and I did that. It was just last week. So I had listed it, condo townhouse, fully renovated. I had 30 private showings within a couple of days. Did an open house Saturday, Sunday, and that was revolving door. People were coming through. I was like, I couldn't keep up. Didn't have enough feature sheets. Everybody was gone. So with that, I was able to get 6 offers on offer date. So I had set it, a little lower than market, and we did get 6 offers on offer date. But what I found, what was kind of interesting, is 4 of them were pretty low. They were still very conservative, but 2 of them were way above and ahead of what the market was showing, at least at that time. So what I'm seeing is that the good properties are selling quick. The properties that are hovering around the million mark, lot of activity. So tons of showings. People are jumping on them. So just to give you an example, I pulled some quick stats before I came for this podcast. So in Woodbridge, so I'm just using Woodbridge because so my market areas, it's West Toronto and Woodbridge. So since we're in Kleinburg, I pulled those numbers for you as well. Okay, so in Woodbridge, and this is just from March 1st to March 31st. So what we do is we divide the active inventory by the number of sales, and that gives you months of inventory. So in Woodbridge, there's 1.38 months of inventory. So that's literally seller's market, and that's why you're seeing multiple offers. Kleinburg, very similar. There's 2.2 months of inventory. And perfect example, on Friday, which was Good Friday, I get a text from a client. Hey, Tony, there's this property in Kleinburg. I'd like to see it. You think you can book us on Saturday? Sure, no problem. I'll book us for 1 o'clock on Saturday. So I get a notification through my app. There's an offer registered. And it's Good Friday. I guess people are working. Not everybody's celebrating. So I'm thinking, okay, do I wait till tomorrow? No, of course, I'm going to reach out to my client and said, listen, I'm with family. If you can meet me there at 7:30, they're presenting at 9. What do you think? Yeah, I want to see it. It's a great property. I want to see it. Okay. So by the time I booked that appointment, 5, 6 o'clock, ping, another offer. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's Good Friday. So I guess, yeah, we're working tonight. So go to the property. They love the property, but they had a half hour to make a decision. It wasn't enough time. It was 1.9 million. And it wasn't a small property. So they basically said, Tony, we love it. If we had 2 more days, we could probably pull this off, but we can't. So 9:30. So I basically got home, text the guy, said, listen, we can't participate. They like it. He goes, no problem. We've got a full offer price, firm, done. Wow. So, and that was just Good
at
Friday.
1.9 million.
1.9 million.
Is this normal? Is this something that you see becoming more normal?
It is. And if it's a good neighborhood, something that, again, if it presents well and it's priced in the right range, they are selling very quickly.
I do agree with that. I've always said it to clients, if the home shows well, it's well priced, it's an upcoming or growing neighborhood, it's going to sell. If a home needs a lot of work, it's not going to sell. And I think you brought up some really, really good points about, the market right now, and it correlates to what we see happening. We have a lot of our clients who said, started in November, trickle through November, December, Anthem, whenever we reactivate my pre-approval, hey, can we restart the process? But this brings us down that pipeline. As I said, 1.9 million, you have to have 20%. Now at this point, you're dealing with multiple offers. This is where we go back to the client. We said, look, you disappeared, you had an opportunity when there was no traction in the market. You could have put in an offer. You could put a condition of financing. Mm-hmm. Now, like your client, you don't have any time to make a decision. You're making the most expensive decision of your life within 5 hours, if that.
Yeah.
And where did we see this before?
Wasn't long ago. Just right before the interest rates started going up, right?
And that June, they're saying they're going to come down a quarter point, right, Tony? Let's assume that's what's going to happen. Do you think that people are doing these multiple offers now in preparation of what's to come?
Yeah, they're front loading.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the reason why they're doing it. They're doing it more so because there's low inventory. Plus, there's a problem with pricing right now because the prices did come down. There's not enough data in the last, let's call it 6 months to justify the prices that we were seeing throughout coming out of the pandemic and then before the interest rates and that big spike in pricing. So what we're finding is a lot of agents don't know what to price their properties at as well. So it's easier for them to price it at $9.99 and throw their cards on the table and let's see what somebody's willing to pay because there isn't enough data in some of the areas. Like this neighborhood that I'm talking about in Kleinburg, there was no sales because my clients that wanted to buy it are in that neighborhood, just in a smaller home. So they're asking me, Tony, what's my house worth? And I said, well, when you called me in November, it was worth X, and now it's probably worth $100,000 more, but you're paying probably $200,000 on the other end. Because the bigger properties have also increased.
That's a good point because I do see that with our portfolio right now. I would say about 95% of it is all in the single family detached space. Sorry, single family, single car detached or town semi. It's not much in the condo market. A lot of our buyers are, as we've talked about, they're either investors or they're people that are looking to move up. And we're just not building enough of those particular homes. So are they seeing the writing on the wall to say, hey, look, we're not going to be building these detached homes. Is now that time, that window, that short window where I can make that move and be really happy that I made that move? Because that's what everybody wants. They want to be coddled and said, hey, yes, you're making that good move. And we seen it with a client, same thing in Kleinberg. It was a detached home. We back and forth, and the client was like, Anth, I appreciate you, not that I want to say I nudged them over the edge to say yes, but, we looked at their financial situation and we really assessed it and said, okay, you have good amount of money banked away. So rainy day fund, trust me, you got years of mortgage payments to cover. You're buying, you're at your young peak earning years. You still have this whole trajectory in front of you. You're in corporate. There's how do you feel about your job security? Works for the food industry. Well, we know that that's not going to be a problem, right?
No, gotta eat.
So, you're looking at that situation. He's like, hey, but we paid like almost 1.5 for a single detached home in Kleinberg, and I'm like, that's not it's crazy for me to say that because I lived in that area. I lived in Kleinberg. We were just off of Huntington and, we were in the Gold Park area there. And I know what we paid for our house and I know what we sold it for.
Right.
And it's like, if someone said to me back when we bought that house on paper 2016, sold 2017, that you would have got what you got for that house, I would have laughed at them.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And now,
but that's the norm because we know that the builders, when they're launching these new sites, they're coming out at heavy numbers. So, the people that I find right now, if you could find a deal, if you can find something now, you're actually going to get a better deal resale than you will buying pre-construction. You're going to have to weather the storm for the next little bit with the interest rates, and as long as their income supports it, then yes, I think it's a good point that you made to these clients. And to your point about the condo market, a big part of our business was condos, and I could count on one hand how many condos I sold last year because, number one, they were hard to sell. It made no sense for investors because now, even though we're getting $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment in downtown Toronto, it still doesn't cover. So the only condos that I sold were end users. So somebody wanting to move downtown, trying to find something that is closer to work, usually a younger, single or a couple that, their budget is tight. And that's the kind of business that we did in the condos. And most recently, I've actually seen some multiple offers in that space as well. But it's not the cookie cutter little box. You got to have something special. Is it a view, maybe a bigger balcony, maybe the den that could be used as a home office? Those are what's selling.
And I find it too with the condo units themselves. As you mentioned, you were talking about, they're just not cash flowing. So, and developers, they need to have a certain percentage of units sold before they can even get a shovel and get the financing. And if we're scaring investors away because we're saying, hey, you guys are bad, right, for business, but you're actually, I still believe the investors are a very important part of bringing inventory to the market. But we're seeing that they're not cash flowing these individuals. So that's pushing people into different markets. And that's a whole different conversation. Yes. But we were talking about the Bank of Canada. You were mentioning, the sensitivity to rates. And I think this is a really big conversation. And at the time of filming this, it's ahead of the Bank of Canada rate announcement coming up on April 10th. But I really think a lot of our buyers, we felt that same, it was, resonating. And what's going to happen with the Bank of Canada? Are they going to cut rates? So now that we're in that cycle where we're probably better poised to say the Bank of Canada is not going to hike rates, they're going to stay relatively neutral, maybe hold for a little bit longer, eventually at some point cutting. This is sort of giving ammunition to potential buyers to say, hey, I better look at my options right now, because for 2 years, buyers were sidelined. Right. That the funnel kept on piling up. People said, okay, I got to get in. Millennials, biggest cohort of potential buyers that are coming down the pipeline right now, they're looking at it and saying, hey, I need to get into the market. I'm at the buying age. I'm working, but I just can't find it. And they're looking at those homes that are trying to find a home sub $1 million because, A, it's affordable. 2, maybe they're coming in with less than 20% down. So they need the CMHC, default insurance. They need Canada Guarantee or Sagan, but they just can't find it. And I think as we start to see all these buyers pile in, new to Canada, and I'm going to say this honestly and openly, as like I'm working with a lot of new to Canada individuals that are coming through. They have great jobs. They have down payment. They're just waiting for that opportunity once they get their PR card to purchase a home.
And how are they going to get this opportunity, at the fact that they're new to the country? How are they going to get this opportunity?
From my experience, a lot of the permanent residents, they've already applied a while back. So they're coming now. They've already secured their job. As long as they have, within the 5 years, we consider them new to Canada if they've been in Canada 5 years. So there's criteria that the banks require for them. Not to get into all that, but literally they're coming here with IT, software engineering, healthcare professionals making really good money. And they're bringing with them, enough of a down payment for them to start. And I feel a lot of these newer individuals, some of them have the hopes and aspirations to buy, the end detached home, but they're not scared to start on the property ladder at the bottom,
right?
And build that equity slowly through the journey.
And tell me something, Tony. Now that you're seeing multiple offers and a lot more traction happening, are these people, younger generation people, younger, home buyers, are they coming with mom and dad?
Well, are they coming to see the properties, or are they helping them financially? Are you asking me?
Are they helping them financially?
A lot of them are. I
right.
mean, they're getting money lended to them, gifted, because the reality is even if someone has a good job, like Anthony mentioned, you're buying let's say a detached property, 1.2 million, they still have to have a heavy down payment and they still have to live. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times the parents are looking at it and saying, well, I was going to give you some money down the road. Let's give it to you now and get you into a house. And I think that's, probably if I think about the last 5 deals, out of those 5, 3 of them had the parents along with them.
They would have to put their home as collateral, wouldn't they?
Some people have savings.
But if putting down a $200,000 down payment and the house is 1.2 million, that's $1 million mortgage. So where you have to have a really, really good job or backed by parents who have a $2 million home.
Well, that brings up a really good question. Yes, when it comes to the financing to qualify for $1 million mortgage, what your income has to be, what type of debt you need to have or not have, I should say. And then now we have this conversation brewing with OSFI, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, which is going to be now bringing this change to the forefront with this 4.5 times income. That's going to be coming in 2025.
Say that again. What does that mean?
So I don't know if a lot of people they're looking at this, and as I said, we're speculating right now because the ink's still not dry, right? This is something that's going to be coming. They had placated with this back in 2023. Now it's official. It's coming in 2025. Where individuals will be qualifying for a mortgage with their banks at 4.5 times income. So, simply put, if you make $100,000, the maximum mortgage that you can qualify for is $450,000, and that's only for properties that are purchased with 20% or more down insured.
This is horrible. This is going to bottleneck the entire market.
Well, here's the silver lining, in my opinion. Ultimately, you have to look at the banks are still going to have provisions. They're still going to be allowed per quarter to make decisions on a certain amount of mortgages that they will allow to go over 4.5 times, right? Wow. So this is now coming down to your point. Is the client coming in with a 35, 40, 50% down payment?
No chance.
Does the client have... No, it's happening.
It is happening?
I mean, in Vaughan GTA, yeah, we see it happening.
So you're telling me somebody comes in with $600,000?
Yeah, what if they sold their house and they built equity in their buying, right?
So they already have equity.
Or the parents are helping. They have a mixture of all three. They've sold the rental property. The formulas could be... You can play around with them. But ultimately, the bank's now going to allocate... They only have so many mortgages that they can distribute at 4.5 times income. That client who maybe, let's put this position, comes in, hey, I want to buy 20% down. I make just enough to qualify. I have no savings. Client B, same scenario. However, they have, 300, 400 grand sitting in the bank. They got 35, 40% down payment and great jobs, clean credit. The bank's going to be like, if we're going to go over 4.5 times and we have only a certain portfolio that we can allocate, this client's going to get the deal.
Right.
So now rediscriminating. Is the financial institutions going to be discriminating on their boards?
The detached and the semis are going to go up up, and so their affordability will be chopped or reduced. Sorry, I think yes, there will be a surge. Just that all depends on the interest rates. Does it make sense as an investment? I feel sorry for some of the people who bought, in the last probably 3 years, those downtown condos at $1,500 a foot, and they're 600 square feet. Pretty scary. I don't know if they're, I guess as rents progress, yes, maybe it might make sense. I think for an entry level property, yes, people will buy them.
As a barrier to entry, the condo market is always going to see that attraction. I think in as someone who's looking to start their life, start their family, it wasn't like our parents' generation. They were able to buy a home. Now you have to buy a condo if you're starting the journey. And the question ultimately comes down to what I see is, if we're going to be bringing in the same amount of, and this could be not a controversial question, but sort of what I see as an overview and observation. If the culture, the sentiment of these people that are coming in, that Canada's bringing in, they are more inclined to have more children. We're starting to see that uptick in the birth rate. Okay. So are they going to be spending their money to get a 1+1 or 2-bedroom? I mean, because now what happens as soon as you go from a 1-bedroom condo to a 2-bedroom condo, what happens to that price point? Yeah. And can you find a home at that equivalent price point, maybe a little north of the city? Because if you're having 3 or 4 kids, let me tell you, you're not able to put them into.
So you think people are just bypassing the starting phase because they already know their families are going to build, like they're going to get larger?
I think as we bring in, like, I'm just taking a look and an observation of my close circle, and my wife's always thinking, "Oh, you're crazy," because I'm always looking at these things. I'm saying, well, I look at my brother, 3 kids. I look at my neighbor, 4 kids. I look at these people down the street on their 3rd kid. Like, what happened? Like, what's like
what changed?
What's changing right now? And I'm not talking. I'm just talking about that's, someone that's been here. I'm talking about what about people that are arriving here? Their culture ultimately will dictate how many kids they have until they sort of come down and like, oh my God, this is pretty expensive.
So then essentially you're kind of disagreeing with Tony in the sense of people are going to bypass the condo phase.
No, I'm saying people are going to start in the condo phase, but the duration of which time they'll stay in those condos is going to shrink, right? So I've already seen, we're like, I'm going to get into the condo and I'm going to be there for 3 years and then I'm going to move. So it's like, okay, because we're having that conversation. Prior to this was the same conversation, but the banks would put them in a 5-year fix. And I'm like, why would you do that if you're telling me you're only going to be there for 3 years or less, right? Take a 3-year, take a variable, take something that's going to allow you that flexibility to get out. But we're saying that is going to be the entry point. Someone's going to have to start somewhere, maybe first kid, 2 kids. What's the option after that? They're going to need to move. All of our clients that are coming to us right now is they're moving out. They're saying, I'm having my 3rd. I'm on my 4th, or, we're having twins, or I'm growing my family. I need the space.
So then on the closing note of this episode, going to Tony, for the viewers that are listening to us right now, why don't you entertain them and tell them where you feel the market is going to go, where you feel that they should start to look within the year of 2024 as trickling into 2025?
Well, I think if they're in a position financially to buy, they should get in now, because the reality is the prices are pretty much, I think they've already bottomed out and they already started climbing. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, multiple offers, the rates haven't changed. The discretioning has changed, right? So from, I guess, 6 months ago to now, maybe 1%, would you say, Anthony?
Yeah, we've seen them come down obviously off their highs in the 6. Yeah, they've come down.
So what we are seeing is that at the beginning of this trend, the property values were lower, and now they're slowly starting to creep up. So even though the interest rate or the discretioning is about that 1%, the prices of homes have gone up now. So that's also lowering people's affordability. So imagine when they reduce a 1/4 point, people are going to run to buy, and those prices are going to go up. So my thought, and this is the conversation, and Anthony touched on that before, I was telling people 6 months ago, buy. If you're thinking about, buy. But everybody's hesitant, or a lot of people were hesitant and didn't buy. So to finish out, I would say that if you're in a position financially to buy or make that move up, now's the time to do it.
I agree with you 100%. We always say to clients, you marry the price of the home, you date the rate, because the rate will change. And when you look at prices, like we were talking about, some of those homes and the price points that they varied from, $150,000 to $200,000 difference from the peak to trough. Even if the interest rate was 6%, it was a 1% spread. You're not making back that $200,000 in the price of the home.
No, definitely not.
And that is it. Once you paint that picture and say, this is what I think people are realizing, and we'll sort of chop it there. But if you think about it right now, a lot of people that speculated this calamity in the housing market to come to fruition, it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But throughout the peak of interest rate hikes, we did not see the homes pull back as much as they did. Even the Bank of Canada was caught off guard with that. So that's telling you, look, what you're waiting for home prices to drop 30-40%, ain't happening. You're going to wait for interest rates to happen? Just step in line with the rest of everybody else that's waiting. Get in when there's less competition, and especially if you're qualified. If you're not qualified, it's one thing. I always say, when you're pre-approved and you're qualified and you've done your numbers, done your math, you come with all the paperwork, you're ready to go, think about it. That's when you want to do it.
And on InTouch Mortgage Solutions, for people who don't know, we give an opportunity to realtors and people abroad in this field to have a voice. And usually it's their very first podcast. So this is Tony Fabiano's very first podcast, and we're honored to have him on.
Once again, thank you. We want to thank you for coming on the show. Let our audience know where they can find you on social media.
Well, very simply, at my first and last name, at Tony Fabiano. My brokerage is Fabiano Realty, so at Fabiano Realty, and that's on Instagram. And we're on all the social media platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook.
And website?
It's very simple again, FabianoRealty.ca. Keep it simple.
He makes it really simple. And Financing Simplified, you can see us obviously on our social media at InTouch Mortgages across YouTube, social media like Instagram and Twitter, and obviously our website at InTouch Mortgage Solutions, or www.intouchmortgagesolutions.com. Once again, Tony, thank you so much, and we'll see all of you on the next one.
See you on the next one.